So let's go. Today's live stream. Late, but let's get to today's live stream. Today's live stream is in Sao Paulo, and today is August 12th, 2026. Today's live stream is about something like this. The Constitution protects rights, right? But does it protect the conditions for life to actually happen? The Constitution is protecting our rights. But what about the conditions for life to happen? Sometimes there's this huge mistake, and we say, oh, a constitution and this, how it is, let's see, let's do it. So this game of relying on the Constitution continues, but there's something very important. She is protecting rights, but what about for life to happen? She is protecting things so that our conversation today can take place. We're going to build on that. The Constitution protects rights. Okay, rights. And that's what's great. So we're going to start this discussion today. And in this discussion, we're going to talk about something very interesting that I think you'll really like. I went to a festival, the Joinville Dance Festival. This Joinville Dance Festival took place from the 20th of last month until the 1st of August. The Joinville Dance Festival happens every year. There are some events around the world that I think are really cool. There's Oktoberfest in Germany. There's also New Year's Eve, which we see here in Rio de Janeiro, sometimes in New York too. New Year's Eve isn't so great, but there's also the Macy's Parade in New York, which is pretty cool. There are several events in your city and around the world. There's also Art Base in Miami. Very good, I like to go. But for me, the greatest show on earth truly is the Lacemaker Dance Festival. By far. It's no small thing. It's by far the best show there is. It's the best show on earth. The emotions I feel at the Joinville Dance Festival transcend. They transcend ideas and transcend words. I watch the artists moving around, performing, making mistakes here and there, and that whole thing gives a feeling. A sense of belonging, a feeling of well-being, a change in behavior. It changes my beliefs watching a show. Do you know what that is? Changing your beliefs, changing the way you think about life by watching a show. These Joinville performances were made possible thanks to the Rouanet law. I mean, the Rouanet law provides good funding for these young artists to go to Joinville for this dance festival. If I could give one suggestion to improve the Joinville Dance Festival, I wouldn't have much to say. Just look, they could provide food and lodging for the artists and a small commission for them to travel around the city. But for me, it's perfect. Every year I try to be there, and lately I've been going more. The last time I went was fantastic. My mother wanted to go with me because she said, let's go there, let's go to Joinville. It was the most beautiful thing ever. I mean, my mother was there watching show after show after show. My mother was also very emotional. She cries easily, maybe a little less than me. I start watching the show and I get very emotional, because in truth, I surrender myself to it. I watch the show and become part of the show. Then I feel the movements inside me. I feel a collective embracing me. Next year, I'll be there again. I don't even know the date, but I'll be there soon because I think this festival is fantastic. And we're going to pass this title on to you. The Constitution protects rights, but does it protect the conditions for a life to truly happen? I'm talking about the Trevino Dance Festival. It's all related. We think the Constitution is something separate from life. The Constitution is the ground we walk on. It's the sidewalk you walk on. It's the light you turn on. It's the water that comes out of your tap. It's the Constitution that provides the basis for all of this. When we distance ourselves from the Constitution, we distance ourselves from this process. But the Constitution is built upon certain legal figures, certain forms, so that it can see the citizen. So it sees the citizen, and sometimes when it sees the citizen, it sees him only in the afternoon. It sees a citizen only when he commits a crime. She didn't arrive before she was unemployed or not studying, but when she commits a crime, she arrives learning. The Constitution authorizes the state to go there and punish. But wait a minute, why didn't it arrive sooner? Why didn't it arrive sooner? Why isn't the Constitution seeing our elderly? Why does it see our babies? Why wait to be registered? Why wait for a debt to appear? Because the state was made in a certain way. To absorb, to exploit people and territory. So the state in the constitution of what was done in Brazil and Latin America, almost all the countries in Latin America, which is where we are interested, it's where I'm very interested in talking. These states are made for statism. It carries out extractivism. But hold on, the Constitution protects rights. Whose rights? If I am in a biome, and I live in this biome with this clean water, with this pure air, if someone comes and starts mining and producing and deforesting, I am losing my rights. Yes, but this right to the forest standing is not in the Constitution. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Why doesn't Marta Imperatrix's right exist in the Constitution? Because our Constitution is structured through a state that is hijacked by very rich people. And sometimes I try to talk to my brothers, to my friends, and since I'm in the South, most of my brothers and friends are far right. They let themselves be led astray. Far right politicians only want to get rich, absolutely nothing more than that. They want to push through corruption, they want to deforest, they want to mine, they want to get rich. The far right is all about getting rich, about monetization, and I try to show these people that they're not protecting the biome, they're protecting monetization on social media through monetization. No, in real life, they're also deforesting, mining, polluting, using pesticides. Think about it a little. Think about it a little. Simply put, the far right exists to monetize. The individual who is on the far right or the politician who is on the far right, some of it is their fault, but it's not a widespread blame game. The factor is that our economy, our planet, has been set up in a way that chases after money. So money is everything. It's about earning, earning, earning. This idea that money is everything makes people enter politics and say, now it's my turn. When people enter politics and have access, the problem isn't money, there's plenty of money, but the surplus goes to the richest. And then they get there and think, now it's my turn, I'm going to get my piece, my share, my bribe. And they build their wealth while they're running the country. So if you notice, you'll clearly see a lot of left-wing politicians. Obviously, it exists, but statistically, you see this process. Those who talk about the right wing and all that, you'll see that anyone who enters politics becomes immune, gets rich very quickly, because it's all bribery. But we're even talking about the Constitution. These people go there and manage to change the Constitution. They put in place laws, rules, and regulations that give greater value to permits for individuals who are mining, exploring, doing something. This permit increases monetization. This monetization buys greater valuation, buys more influence among politicians, and then increases the permits. And then they earn more, and then they buy more. Then they'll buy judges, senators. They'll put the best public servants in charge of this monetizing scheme. Hold on a minute. Money, money, and more money monetizing. Is this the right path? Are you getting rich? So I talk to a lot of my friends, and some of them are religious, and they say things like being rich is good because it creates jobs. That's the way it is. Jobs will come, but being rich is good because it creates jobs. So even if these millionaires steal, it's good because they create jobs. And now, with the financial market, you can leverage your funds and stocks, etc. In short, you're accumulating wealth without creating jobs. This idea that the rich create jobs is a trickle-down tack. The richer they get, the more wealth they drain into our economic structure, providing crumbs for people to live in a state of economic trickle down. That's a lie, and it comes from neoliberalism. It also talks about the invisible hand of the market, and you all are seeing that this invisible hand, it doesn't have that power. It's simply about hiding theft. Whose rights does the Constitution protect? Whose rights? So the Constitution needs to be revamped. We have the Constitution. Let's see. Does it protect the rights of the baby being born now? Which baby? The one born in this home? In that home? Or in any home? Is it being protected anywhere in the national territory? This Constitution protects the biome where the pure water comes from, where the resources come from, where our infrastructure is built. If I'm going to build infrastructure in a country, in a city, I build it in. It's about building on a biome. I build on a location. That location is real and physical. However, the Constitution doesn't consider the location. It only considers the infrastructure, which is necessary but built on a location, and it doesn't protect the biome. Biomes are not mentioned in the Constitution. It's as if we come from nowhere. Yes, but the citizen exists as a body, a territory. He exists in a place within a biome. It's not in nothingness, it's in space, in a specific location. And the Constitution begins to grant rights to people who often aren't even in Brazil. And by the way, he's always bad-mouthing the state. And by the way, he's always saying that other countries should invade Brazil, even if it means losing national sovereignty. But he wears a green and yellow shirt because he's a patriot. But he's giving full authorization for the invasion of the country. He's handing the country over. So, and then I go back to the Joinville Dance Festival, and you'll understand why I mentioned this dance festival. When you're watching, and when I was watching and stayed there for those 10 days from July 20th to August 1st, you feel some very strong emotions. Very strong. For me, it's really very strong. And then you start, and I start thinking the following. Why aren't others here? Why can't other people feel this same emotion that I'm feeling? Because people have to work, because transportation isn't very accessible for everyone, because some don't even want to go because they don't really know how. They even think it's a sin. Dancing is a sin. If you look at all the peoples from 1,000 years ago, all the movements of the people are reinforced by the dances that the people have, by the culture that they have. Dance itself is something that increases this community, this belonging, this feeling of being together. We need to dance, we need to move, we need to synchronize, and nothing is better than an artist doing that. So when you watch, you have a sense of community, a sense of country, a sense of diversity. That's what democracy is like. You have your sense because you have your being, your body, your ideas, your freedom of speech, which when you go to the far right doesn't exist. They talk about freedom of speech, but the body can't dance, can't express itself because in Brazil, right, the far right is different in each country. It supports the largest religious segment in each country. So there are countries where it will be Buddhist. There are countries like Israel that aren't Christian. On the far right, it's not Christian. It's a different line. So it will always support large movements. And this support leads to this way of looking at society. You can't do this, you can't do that. Boys wear blue and girls wear pink. Where is freedom of expression? Where is freedom of expression? And we also see this desire to undermine the state and the Constitution, which is a secular state. It doesn't have to be Christian. Secular includes Christian. Every time you're thinking about something, you have to see things in your life that include more possibilities, not things that restrict you. When you restrict your life by saying you can't, look, I restrict myself by saying I can't do this, that, and the other thing because it's my way of being. It's my way of being at this moment because I'm fasting at this moment. one, whatever the sacrifice, whatever the devotion at this moment. But I can't demand that the other person do the same as I'm doing. That's total brain limitation. It's feeding the person's cognition, demanding that the other person do the same thing. And when only the other person does something that is the same as what you think, they belong to your group or your bubble. And when it's a bubble, it complicates things too much, right? This belonging is based on an algorithm that is making the members, each one in the bubble, think that what they think is right and will. It's like rolling a die that reinforces your belief in what you're thinking. And it's interesting. Once I saw someone who spoke very eloquently about what a bubble is. A die came up, a little video appeared, and I said, look, this video is a lie. Then the person said, it doesn't matter. It could be true. Wow. I haven't said anything else. I have nothing more to say. When it could be true, you fell for the bait on the bubble's hook. The bubble will pass on to you what you think could be true with slight distortions and will pull you out of it. It will put you back in front of the army clapping for the patriots who are granting pardon to national sovereignty. Understand? Be careful. You can be baited by these little things that reinforce what you think in your bubbles. What do you need? Go to the Joinville Dance Festival. Open up. Look at the various types of dance, expression, ways of being, behaving, and walking. A different way of walking changes our perception. I'll be doing a live stream with you soon, but I need to study more about it. I'll be talking about consciousness and metacognition. Consciousness, in my understanding, is the movement perceived in the metabolism produced. That sounds sophisticated, but it's simpler. Consciousness and metacognition are part of that movement. You want to do something, you want to assemble a piece, and you start assembling it automatically. You're assembling it, and what you predict will happen isn't happening, so you correct it. Notice? You're assembling something. Food, a cake, a piece, something. You're putting together a collage, a painting, and it's not happening, so you correct it. When what you predicted isn't happening, and you correct your movements to get where you predicted, what we're doing is movement, predicting, and correcting. That's metacognition. So we're talking about metacognition without words. That's it. Consciousness doesn't need words. Consciousness is a movement that is perceived in the metabolism produced. You are moving, you are producing this movement. It's the metabolism for the muscles to contract and produce. And you correct this through consciousness. So what you're experiencing is a lack of the Jackson language, but the important language. Fantastic. Words are one of the best technologies we have, but movement is what makes them powerful. The movement we have is dance, movement, expression. I can do this. I can't dance. I can't do this. I can't do that. This will restrict thoughts. It will restrict beliefs and creativity because you can't even see a dance. So your creativity is restricted because when you see a dance, the movements occur within me. I call this a form of allostatics. Allostatics. The homeostasis that you have within you, you regulate yourself. Allostatic things are like when you're in a gathering with a lot of people cheering for a football team, watching a carnival, or going for a walk together. Certain forces, due to your presence in the collective, regulate you. You regulate yourself through the presence of others. I saw a cool study about this, about babies. Babies sometimes have certain behaviors that are bad for them. The mother approaches and they regulate themselves. Allostatics is that it's you regulating yourself through the presence of other beings around you. So this concept is very important. When you see a dance, allostatic processes begin to occur within you. Something that was stuck in your throat comes out and you cry. So You cry without thinking of words. That's it. Some energies, which I call accumulated energy in parts of the body, can come out when you're watching a dance performance. And that's what I do. I release it. Botmaya comes from crying, Botmaya comes from tears, Botmaya comes from laughter, Botmaya comes from shivers. But these aren't words. They aren't words. It's pure consciousness in its purest state. It's consciousness without thought, without words. It's consciousness experiencing a show, the greatest spectacle on earth for me, which is the Joinville Dance Festival. Few people understand me when I say this. I understand and I come back. And it's important when you use language, that language is a word. Look, I'm showing you gestures, but without words, it would be complicated. So the word gives a very strong sense of understanding, a cognition with words, yes, but there's also implicit learning, which is cognition without words. It works both ways. But just so you understand, and maybe I'll say this again in the future, sometimes it depends on the culture, the set of words you put together, you separate what is the subject, what is the object, what is the verb, the linking verb, predicates and all that stuff, but let's talk about subject and object. In some languages, subjects and objects are together. When you connect the subject and the object without separating them, your world changes. Your interpretation of the world changes. So what happens with these original languages? I don't know if Guarani is like this, but Oimara is. It connects the subject with the object. In other languages of our Amerindians, when you join or separate the subjects from the object, the worldview you have is different because the language already gives you a reference point for analyzing things. You are analyzing through Brazilian Portuguese, you are analyzing through Portuguese from Portugal, or you are analyzing through Spanish or English, or from Guarani or any other language. So when you analyze something, the facts, when you report them, you report and can separate the subject from the object. And by separating the subject from the object, you go to another world of interpretation. The Constitution protects rights, and the rights are that each person has freedom of expression in living their world together with the biome that sustains life, together with the conditions for life to flourish. That is the biome. And why isn't the biome in the Constitution? Because the state is hijacked. Why is the state hijacked? Think about it carefully. This state only wants to bite, this state only wants to pay taxes, it only wants to bite, and then you start going against the state and distance yourself from politics and let the politicians look, because politics is dirty. They control and hijack the state and give more permission to these communication networks. They don't regulate the internet because if they do, they'll lose freedom of expression. That's a lie. Freedom of expression is the ability to dance, to move around. For boys to wear pink and girls to wear blue. That's freedom. Then you take a far-right group and go to the absurd level of religious groups and try to shut them down. The other is the enemy, the other is Satan. Let's kill these enemies. Obviously, the left wing in the country right now is the PT, Workers' Party. There are a lot of problems within these parties, and I know about some of these problems, and they are incompatible with these ideas even. They get close to the biome, but sometimes even Lula himself doesn't reach it. Cranach has a criticism largely based on Lula, that Lula looks at the Amazon and says, let's colonize the Amazon. We don't need to colonize the Amazon. We need to defend this biome because this biome brings water. This biome brings purity. It's not colonization. Enough with colonizing. We have to defend the possibilities of worlds, of cultures that already exist there. Defend these possibilities for the growth of new worlds. Freedom of expression is me believing in one world and you in another, and we live together in the same country without being enemies. I spent quite a bit of time in the South, in Joinville, and it's truly impressive how it's like a bed that reverberates the same thing. One person tells another, Brazil is like this. Yes, Brazil is. But why? Because the other person said so, the other person said so. So a lie becomes consolidated as truth because it comes from various sources. It comes from the father, the mother, the uncle, the neighbor, the internet. Yes, but it's social media. It's not true. Why is it like this? Look, just see the crime. You have to be careful and take a look. Try, you and I, to be flexible, to dance. See the Joinville Dance Festival when you can. Go there, look at the dance, look at the movement, look at different perspectives on life, different beats, different marches, different body expressions, different feelings. I really like it when they present contemporary dance where the body goes and the artist begins to express pain. Sometimes the artist starts to express the pain, and I start to cry so intensely, so very intensely. And that pain, that movement of the artist goes towards that pain. And I cry that pain through the movement without needing to remember pains I've had in the past. I simply release an energy that was accumulated in some part of my body, I don't know where, and it goes out. This whole process, which I call bodily allostasis, I'm seeing the artist dancing. I'm seeing him express the pain. So I have a path of expression, even if it's in the realm of imagery. The pain comes out. Freedom. These dances are fundamental. The government that supports it with the Rouanet law and this Joinville Dance Festival allows you to create a new world within yourself. A world that is permissive, that is open, and that is broad, that allows other people to have their own religious practices. And you act, and we are together in the Constitution, which should be improved. It should see you as a body, a territory. You are an individual in a place that has a biome. This biome must be defended. I told you this in the last live stream. When a biome is destroyed, you sell timber, you sell more things to the hospital because people will get sick. The GDP goes up, the river rots, and the GDP. That's not progress. That's a positive feedback loop of damage, of extractivism that will lead us nowhere. So we need a constitution that protects not only people's rights, but truly protects life. What makes life happen? The biome, the water, the air, and then we have protection for life. And little by little, remove these people who have hijacked our state, separate them, judge them. Of course, they are after funds and companies whose CNPJs we cannot trace. We have some leads, but it is hard to find them because they have shielded themselves with laws that obscure the CPF of those making large sums of money. And remember the very wealthy CPF holders? Billionaire CPF holders have CNPJs that are nearly bankrupt, requesting loans from the state, while behind the scenes, the billionaire CPF holder remains rich and the company is failing due to pure trickery, a mere transaction. It's not goodwill to love faith all the time, so when do we have to reverse that? With you. What you see in art, in culture, and what you feel. Feeling moves you, and it can draw energy from here and there. And you don't need to rise to another layer of words, because the words can be in Portuguese. They can be redundant, leaving you in a great dead end. Then your body moves. You see something and go to something else. Better. You will be your optimal version now without your words, but with your movements, with your doing, being, allowing yourself, as the saying goes, let it come, let it stay, let it be, and let it go. Things come and go. You will be okay. You're going through a tough time right now, but suddenly this emotion stays in your chest. Suddenly it comes out in the form of a tear. It doesn't need to come out through words. You'll fix the enemy. That's the problem. Will this pain only leave your chest after you kill the enemy? No. It matures, it leaves, and you let it go. and you let other things come. You let them stay, you let them be, and you let them go. Big hug to you all, everyone. Until next Wednesday.